The text message came through at 11:47 p.m. Bali time, just as I was settling into the silk robe provided by our resort. My husband was already asleep, his soft snoring drifting from the bedroom. I'd stayed up to enjoy one more glass of wine on our private terrace, watching the moonlight dance across the infinity pool. The message was from Rosa, our housekeeper of 15 years. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry to disturb your vacation, but there's something you need to know. Miss Vanessa is hosting a party at the house. A big one. She's been here since yesterday, giving orders, rearranging furniture. There must be 40 people here now. I didn't know what to do. I read it twice, my fingers tightening around the stem of my wine glass. Then came the photos. My living room transformed into something that looked like a nightclub. Strobe lights. A DJ booth where my antique console table usually stood. Young people I'd never seen before sprawled across my custom Italian sofas, drinks in hand. And there, in the centre of it all, stood Vanessa, my son Marcus's fiancée, wearing what appeared to be a crown made of flowers, arms raised like she was conducting an orchestra. I sat very still, feeling that old familiar sensation settling over me. The one my business partners used to call my Ice Queen mode, back when I was still working. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something colder, sharper. Clarity. I opened my laptop and pulled up the security camera feeds. I'd had the system installed 2 years ago, and very few people knew about it. The cameras were discreet, built into decorative elements throughout the house. What I saw made my jaw tighten. Vanessa pointing at Rosa, her finger jabbing the air, Rosa's head bowed, nodding, Vanessa's mouth moving rapidly, her expression imperious. Then another clip. Vanessa showing her friends around, opening doors to rooms that were meant to be private. My study. Marcus's childhood bedroom that I'd kept exactly as it was. Even the master bedroom where strangers were now taking selfies on my bed. I checked my watch. It was noon in California. I pulled up my contacts and started making calls. The first was to my son, who was supposedly on a business trip in Seattle. Mom, is everything okay? It's the middle of the night there, isn't it? Marcus. My voice came out level, controlled. When did you tell Vanessa she could stay at our house while we were traveling? Silence on the other end. Long enough that I knew the answer. I didn't. Why? Is she there? She is. With about 40 of her closest friends. Rosa tells me she's been giving orders, acting like she owns the place. Would you like to see the photos? I heard him exhale sharply. Mom, I had no idea. I swear. She said she was staying with her sister this weekend. I'm so sorry. I'll call her right now and... No. I cut him off gently but firmly. Don't call her. Don't text her. Don't give her any warning at all. What are you going to do? I smiled, though he couldn't see it. I'm coming home, sweetheart. Your father can enjoy the rest of the vacation. He doesn't need to know about this just yet. I'll catch the morning flight. Mom, let me handle this. I'll fly down tonight and... Marcus. I softened my tone. Do you remember what I told you when you were 16 and that boy at school was bullying the younger kids? He was quiet for a moment. You said that sometimes the best lessons are taught by letting people see the natural consequences of their actions. Exactly. Vanessa needs to learn a lesson about boundaries, respect, and what it means to be part of this family. If it comes from you, she'll just make excuses or blame others. This needs to come from me. You're going to hate me for saying this, but I'm a little scared for her right now. I laughed, surprising myself. You should be. I'll call you when it's done. After we hung up, I booked a ticket on the 6 a.m. flight, then sent a carefully worded message to Rosa. Don't worry. Help is on the way. Keep the cameras recording. If Vanessa asks you to do anything that damages property or seems unsafe, politely tell her you'll have to check with me first. Otherwise, let the party continue. I want to see exactly what she does when she thinks no one is watching. Rosa's response came immediately. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I've been so worried. She told me tonight that when she moves in after the wedding, I'll need to adjust my attitude or find another job. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. Rosa had been with us since Marcus was 5 years old. She'd helped raise my son, had been there through my late nights building my business, had held my hand when my mother died. She was family. Document everything she says to you, I wrote back. Every order, every comment. I'll want to hear it all. The flight seemed to take forever. I spent most of it reviewing camera footage on my laptop, watching Vanessa's performance unfold. She'd found my vintage champagne in the cellar, the bottles I'd been saving for Marcus's wedding. They were empty now, tossed carelessly into recycling bins. She'd moved furniture around to create a dance floor, scratching the hardwood floors I'd had specially refinished last year. She'd let someone smoke cigars in my sunroom, despite the no-smoking signs posted throughout the house. But it was the way she treated Rosa that made my blood run cold, snapping her fingers to get Rosa's attention, rolling her eyes when Rosa didn't move fast enough. At one point, I watched Vanessa actually push Rosa aside to get through a doorway, not even acknowledging her presence. I arrived at LAX at 3 p.m. and went straight home, stopping only to change clothes at a hotel near the airport. I wanted to look perfect for this. I chose a cream silk blouse, tailored black pants, and the diamond earrings my husband had given me for our 25th anniversary. I pulled my hair back into a sleek bun and applied my makeup with care. When I looked in the mirror, I saw exactly what I wanted: wealth, power, and absolute control. I had the Uber drop me off 2 houses down, not wanting the sound of a car in the driveway to alert anyone. It was just after 5 p.m. when I walked up to my own front door. The party was still going strong. I could hear music thumping through the walls, smell marijuana smoke drifting from an open window. I used my key and stepped inside. The first thing I saw was a young man I'd never met sprawled across my grandmother's antique fainting couch, his shoes on the cushions. Red wine had been spilled on my Persian rug and left to soak in. Someone had put out cigarettes in my baccarat crystal bowl. I walked through the foyer without saying a word, my heels clicking on the marble. A few people glanced at me, then looked away, probably assuming I was just another guest. I found Rosa in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, her face drawn with exhaustion. "Mrs. Chen?" She looked up, relief flooding her features. "You're here." "I am." "Where is she?" Rosa pointed toward the living room. "Out there. She's been dancing for the past hour." I touched Rosa's shoulder gently. "Go upstairs to the guest room and rest. Lock the door. This won't take long." Then I walked into my living room. Vanessa was in the center of the space, dancing with 2 women I didn't recognize, her arms above her head, her eyes closed. She was wearing a tight silver dress and those ridiculous heels that were clearly damaging my floors. Her flower crown sat askew on her head. I stood there for a moment, just watching. The music was some kind of electronic dance mix, all bass and synthesized beats. The lights Vanessa had installed were flashing purple and blue. There must have been 50 people crammed into a space meant for elegant entertaining, not this. I walked to the sound system and unplugged it. The music died instantly. The sudden silence was almost physical. Everyone turned to look at me. "Good evening," I said pleasantly, my voice carrying across the room. "I'm Karen Chen. I own this house, and I don't believe any of you were invited." Vanessa's eyes flew open. For a moment she just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. Then her face flushed red. "Mrs. Chen, I didn't expect..." Clearly, I let my gaze sweep across the room, taking in every face, every spilled drink, every damaged surface. "I'm going to give all of you exactly 5 minutes to gather your things and leave my home. If you're not out by then, I'll be calling the police to report a break-in." People started moving immediately, grabbing purses and jackets, mumbling apologies, but Vanessa didn't move. She stood there, her chest heaving, her hands clenched at her sides. "You can't just... I'm going to be your daughter-in-law. This is going to be my home too." I walked toward her slowly, deliberately. When I was close enough that only she could hear me clearly, I spoke in a low, steady voice. "This house is not yours. It will never be yours. You are not my daughter-in-law. You're not even my son's fiancée anymore." Her eyes widened. You can't. Marcus loves me. You can't tell him what to do. You're absolutely right. I can't tell Marcus what to do. He's 30 years old, a grown man who makes his own decisions. I paused, letting that sink in. But I can tell him what I saw on my security cameras. Every moment of the past 2 days. The way you treated Rosa, who has been with this family longer than you've been alive. The way you opened my private rooms to strangers. The way you helped yourself to champagne that cost more than your car. The way you acted like you owned something you have no right to. The colour drained from her face. Security cameras? Everywhere. Did you really think we'd leave a house like this unmonitored? I smiled then. And I know it wasn't a kind smile. I have 48 hours of footage, Vanessa. Marcus is watching it right now, actually. I sent him the highlights during my flight. No. Her voice came out as a whisper. No, you're lying. I pulled out my phone and pulled up a clip, turned it so she could see. It was her, pointing at Rosa, saying something I'd had transcribed from the video. When I'm living here, you'll learn to move faster, or you'll be out on the street. I watched Vanessa's face crumble. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Take your friends, take your crown, and get out. You have 3 minutes now. Please. Tears were streaming down her face, smearing her makeup. Please, Mrs. Chen, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I was just excited about the wedding and I wanted to show my friends. You wanted to show your friends that you'd caught a rich husband, that you were moving up in the world, that you'd have power and status and the right to treat people however you wanted. I shook my head. That's not what this family is about. We don't treat people like servants. We don't take what isn't ours. We don't act like bullies just because we can. I can change. I'll apologize to Rosa. I'll pay for the damages. You'll leave, I said firmly. Because the kind of person who would do what you did these past 2 days isn't someone who made a mistake. You showed me who you really are when you thought no one important was watching. And that person has no place in my son's life. The last guests were scrambling out the front door. Vanessa stood there, mascara running down her cheeks, her flower crown slipping further down her head. Marcus will forgive me, she said, her voice turning defiant, even as tears continued to fall. He loves me. We'll just move out, get our own place. He doesn't need your approval. You're absolutely right again, I said calmly. He doesn't need my approval, but he does need to see those videos, and he does need to hear from Rosa about how you treated her, and then he'll make his own choice. I walked to the front door and held it open. Time's up, Vanessa. She walked past me, her head high despite the tears, trying to maintain some dignity. At the door, she turned back. I really did love him, you know. No, I said softly. You loved the idea of him, the lifestyle, the money, the status. If you'd loved Marcus, you would have respected his family. You would have treated the people he cares about with kindness. You would have waited for an invitation before throwing a party in someone else's home. She left without another word. I closed the door behind her and locked it. The house was a disaster. It would take days to clean, weeks to repair the damage. I stood in the foyer, looking at the mess, and felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Rosa came down the stairs tentatively. Is she gone? She's gone. I turned to her and took her hands. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. No one should be treated the way she treated you. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. I was so worried. I didn't know what to do. She said such terrible things. I know, I saw, and I heard. I pulled her into a hug. You've been with this family for 15 years. You're not just our housekeeper, Rosa. You're family. And no one treats my family like that. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom, I watched the videos. All of them. I broke up with her. I'm so sorry. I should have seen who she really was. I'm flying home tonight. We'll clean up together. I showed the message to Rosa, who smiled through her tears. Your boy has a good heart, she said. He just needed to see clearly. He does have a good heart, I agreed. And now he'll be more careful about who he lets into it. We started cleaning together, bagging up trash, opening windows to air out the smoke smell. It was methodical, therapeutic work. With each room we restored to order, I felt the tension leaving my shoulders. Around midnight, Marcus arrived. He stood in the doorway of the living room, taking in the damage, his face tight with anger and shame. "Mom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." I walked over and hugged him. "You're young. You're learning. This is part of life." I should have known. I should have seen the signs. The way she talked about material things, the way she name-dropped designers, the way she always wanted to take pictures in fancy places. He ran a hand through his hair. "I thought she was just enthusiastic, you know. I didn't realize she was performing." "That's the thing about people like Vanessa," I said, handing him a garbage bag. "They're very good at performing, but eventually they always show you who they really are. You just have to be paying attention." We worked through the night, the three of us, Rosa, Marcus, and me, cleaning, scrubbing, restoring order. By dawn, most of the visible damage was addressed. The scratched floors would need refinishing. The wine-stained rug would need professional cleaning. But the house felt like ours again. As the sun came up, we sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. Rosa had made her famous cinnamon rolls, and the smell filled the house, replacing the last traces of marijuana smoke. "I learned something important," Marcus said quietly, "about what matters. It's not the house or the money or the status. It's the people, the ones who show up, the ones who stay, the ones who treat others with respect, even when they think no one's watching." "That's exactly right," I said. "Your father and I built this life because we wanted to provide security for our family. But the real wealth isn't in the house or the things in it. It's in relationships built on respect and trust." Rosa patted Marcus's hand. "You're a good boy. You'll find the right person. Someone who sees you, not just what you can give them." My phone buzzed. A text from my husband, who I'd finally called from the car on the way home. "Should I cut the vacation short?" I texted back. "No, stay. Enjoy. Everything's handled. I'll tell you all about it when you get home. Trust me, you'll want to hear this story in person." Marcus looked at me over his coffee cup. "How did you know? How did you stay so calm? If that had been me, I would have just started yelling." "Because yelling doesn't teach anything," I said. Vanessa needed to see herself clearly. She needed to face the consequences of her actions without being able to blame them on someone else's anger. If I'd come in screaming, she could have painted herself as the victim of a crazy mother-in-law. But I didn't give her that option. I just showed her the truth. "You're terrifying," Marcus said, but he was smiling. "I prefer strategic," I replied. We finished our coffee as the morning light filled the kitchen. In a few hours, professionals would arrive to assess the damage and start repairs. But right now, in this moment, everything felt exactly as it should be. Rosa excused herself to start her day, and Marcus and I sat in comfortable silence. "Mom," he said finally, "thank you for protecting our home, for protecting Rosa, for protecting me, even though I'm 30 years old and should probably be able to protect myself." "That's what mothers do," I said simply. "We protect what matters. And sometimes we teach the lessons that need to be taught, even when they're uncomfortable." I think Vanessa learned her lesson. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe she'll just learn to be more careful about security cameras. But that's not really my concern. My concern is that you learned something from this." "I did." He nodded slowly. "I learned that character shows up in how people treat others when they think it doesn't matter. I learned that respect isn't something you can fake long-term. And I learned that my mother is not someone you want to cross." I laughed at that, a real laugh that felt good after the tension of the past 24 hours. "Your father's going to be so disappointed he missed all the excitement," I said. "You can show him the videos," Marcus suggested. "I'm sure they're very educational." "Oh, I plan to. I'm thinking of making a highlight reel. Maybe setting it to music." We both laughed then, and it felt like healing. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. I could hear birds singing, cars starting, the normal sounds of a Sunday morning. Inside my home, everything was returning to normal too. The chaos was over. The intruder was gone. The lesson was learned. I thought about Vanessa, probably crying in her apartment, calling friends to complain about the crazy rich woman who ruined her life. She'd paint herself as the victim, I was sure. She'd say I was jealous or controlling or unreasonable. But I knew the truth. And more importantly, Marcus knew the truth. Rosa knew the truth. And sometimes, that's all that matters. "What will you tell people?" Marcus asked. "When they ask why you broke up with Vanessa?" "I'll tell them the truth," he said. "That we wanted different things. That I learned we weren't compatible. That sometimes you have to see someone in a different context to really understand who they are." "That's very diplomatic," I said approvingly. "I learned from the best." We sat there a while longer, mother and son, in a house that had been violated but was now reclaimed. In a few hours, my husband would call from Bali, wanting details. Tomorrow the repairs would begin. Next week life would return to its normal rhythm. But right now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it needed to be. The uninvited hostess was gone. The lesson was learned. The family was intact. And in my home, the place I'd worked so hard to build and protect, respect had been restored. I took another sip of coffee and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't rage or retaliation. It's simply showing someone exactly who they are and letting them live with the consequences. Vanessa had wanted to be the queen of this castle. Instead, she'd learned that castles have gates, and some people will never be granted entry. That was a lesson worth teaching, and I'd taught it perfectly.